Guru Nation, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share if you're listening. I definitely thank you as well. Make sure you do the same. Listen, I did this video in the car driving about 3 months ago, job responsibilities of a clinical research coordinator. And the comments said to do like a longer form of it. So this is like a more in-depth version of all the possible responsibilities of a clinical research coordinator. I tried to break it down into 10 categories, so it's fairly simple to reference, but for the most part, this is everything a coordinator could possibly do. It doesn't mean every site you're going to be doing these things if you're a coordinator, or every company. A lot of companies have streamlined tasks, so a lot of these tasks are not done by the same coordinator. My site, pretty much everyone does all of this. We have done some form of streamlining, but none to the extent of how other sites do, especially the bigger sites and definitely the academic medical centers. But there is like this entire list, this comprehensive list. If you do all of these things as a coordinator, you are a generalist, at least for the site level. And I think it's important. This is why I keep talking about why you should work at a smaller site that's trending up, preferably like, I don't know, someplace like Yuma Clinical Trials. I mean, that's exactly what we are, a small clinic that's trending up, meaning we still have plenty of room to grow. You want to get in early at one of these sites, or just be at a small site where you do more tasks, because you will be more valuable later on in your career. And remember to treat this like a career, not a job. So this is a comprehensive list of possible responsibilities for a clinical research coordinator. Again, doesn't mean every coordinator does all these things, but it's possible. Like that SNL skit. So the first category is patient recruitment and engagement. And by the way, these are not ranked in any particular order. So they're just numbered. Patient recruitment and engagement. Identifying potential participants by reviewing medical records and databases, conducting outreach to patients via phone calls, emails, social media, pre-screening potential patients to assess eligibility, scheduling and conducting patient visits, educating patients about the studies, the risks and the benefits, and maintaining engagement and communication with patients throughout the study to ensure compliance. So this is patient recruitment and engagement, or retention, however you want to call it. Now, coordinators, like at our site, the coordinators do this, but we do also have an admin whose main function is this. And eventually, that admin will be in charge of a few other things, which we're going to get through in this list. But patient recruitment, extremely important. And I would even take it a step further and say this is like community outreach, which would be included in this. And whether it's online or offline, going to fairs, hosting health fairs, setting up booths, collaborating with other businesses, or like Yuma Clinical Trials does, like actual networking with other businesses in the community to generate referrals, generate leads. You know, we do it here with a nail salon. We do it with a few restaurants in town. We have our own burger at a local restaurant called the YCT Burger. So you try to help each other out, and we will promote those businesses as well. That's all part of patient recruitment and engagement. And yes, it is possible that a coordinator is in charge of this stuff. The next task of possibilities is regulatory and compliance. So this is all the regulatory documents. Preparing and submitting regulatory documents. This includes IRB submissions, amendments, continuing reviews, initial IRB application review, This includes everything on the regulatory documents videos I did, the Comprehensive Guide to Regulatory Documents, study startup, study maintenance, study closeout, and everything in between, which is everything, right? This includes maintaining reg binders and ensuring all documents are up to date, whether that is physical binder, e-reg like CREO, an e-reg like Shared Investigator Portal like SIP, which is increasingly being used by more sponsors, tracking and reporting adverse events and deviations, ensuring compliance with GCP, FDA regulations and local guidelines, conducting site initiation visits, so being a part of the SIV tomorrow at this site where I'm sitting at this table, actually, we will have a site initiation visit. And this is going to be the monitor coming here, training all the staff on the new study. And the coordinator in charge of that study is really leading that. So they're going to be here and making sure that the rest of the staff and team are on the same page with everything we need to start screening patients for that study. So that's study startup, regulatory. The next thing in regulatory is managing and maintaining the ISF and liaising with the IRBs. So, when a deviation, for example, occurs in the study, well, yes, it's a deviation. There's a deviation log, but if it's a deviation that affects patient safety, it usually requires IRB notice. So you have to let the IRB know what the deviation was. And so that's definitely a huge part of the study coordinator job. And some sites have dedicated regulatory specialists that do nothing but this. But again, most sites like mine, we're training generalists and future leaders of the industry. You're going to be doing this. You're going to be doing your fair share. The next things, of course, the coordination of the actual operations of the trial. So study coordination. This is the title of a study coordinator. Developing and managing timelines to assure protocol adherence. This one's important. We make a lot of cheat sheets around here for our studies. Every study has its own nuances, intricacies. The coordinator for that study makes a cheat sheet so everyone else is on board. This is really what you need to look out for. These are the prohibited meds. These are what you need to get in, like the most important things. Once you start doing a few visits, you're going to start getting a hang of what are some of the common fail points. And sometimes you won't know what the fail points are until you actually experience them yourself. And then you retrain your staff. You update the cheat sheet, maybe you update the source, revise the source document. That's also part of it, is the creating the source document. So the source, whether it's paper or e-source, it's part of the coordinator's job to create the source. Again, not every site the coordinator is going to do all these things, but at my site, we do all these things. Coordinating the visits. Screening, baseline, follow-ups, their scheduling. Now, we have admins that help with the scheduling, but typically the admins do the screenings. And then the coordinators themselves have control over scheduling the regular follow-up visits. Now, that does not just mean that the patient agrees to that scheduled date. It means that the patient obviously has to agree. The PI or sub-Is that are needed for that visit are available. And anything else that is needed for that visit, like dry ice, do we need a phlebotomist, which, by the way, at my site, everyone's trained on how to draw blood. And not everyone's as good as a trained phlebotomist. We do have a trained phlebotomist on staff as well. But every coordinator is encouraged to learn how to draw blood, process the labs, which is also part of the job. And we're all here to help each other at the end of the day. So if we get a tough blood draw, we have a phlebotomist. And if it's even too tough for that person, We have another phlebotomist that's on standby, and then we have a couple backups. We have a couple mobile phlebotomists too that can come in. But basically, the coordinator's in charge of making sure all these people are available, all these things are getting done, and if there's any issues, that they are resolved in a timely manner. Collecting and documenting the study data, of course, so capturing the source documents, capturing the source data, entering the data in the EDC. Eventually, the data entry at my site will also be done by an admin. But for now, every coordinator is doing it. Answering queries is also another thing that the coordinators do, but we'll save that for the next section. Ensuring proper handling of the investigational product. So when you receive new drug, is it entered into the IRT and properly put away? Is it reconciled? And checking that there were no excursions during transit of the investigational product. Checking that all IPs that you were supposed to receive were received. This is called reconciliation. And storing it away properly. And maintaining the storage of the investigational product. So checking out for temperature excursions. We have temp sticks that we use here where there's alerts sent out whenever there's an excursion. So minimum or maximum alerts. We have temperature excursions. That's part of the coordinating job. I know at some of the bigger institutions, they have pharmacists to deal with the investigation of product. The majority of community sites like this don't have pharmacists. It's the coordinators doing that too. Also, part of study coordination is lab shipments and making sure that the necessary paperwork is maintained by the site, such as IATA certifications for anyone shipping hazardous goods, which is every single coordinator. CLIA waiver for the site. Those things expire. They're not indefinite. Making sure those are up to date. Making sure you're getting lab reference ranges if you're using local labs. Make sure you have the latest lab reference ranges on hand. Making sure that you are getting the lab results properly and that you are getting them signed. If you are missing lab results for a patient and the next visit happens and you didn't get the lab results for whatever reason, that's kind of a deviation. If anything, it's also a lack of PI oversight because the coordinator is supposed to give the labs to the PI or the sub-I so that the PI or sub-I can assess for clinical significance. This is all study coordinator stuff. Yes, the PI is supposed to assess clinical significance, but the study coordinator is supposed to make sure it gets done. PIs are busy, sub-Is are busy. That's the coordinator's job as well. And finally, overseeing the inventory of study supplies and investigational products. Right behind me, maybe perfect setting for this video, you can see boxes. These are not investigational products because we put those away right away. These are lab kits that have yet to be put away, and these are certain equipment like iPads or patient diaries for certain studies. This is a new study that we got right behind us, so those will be put away soon. That's also part of being a study coordinator. Next section is data management. So this is what I talked about, entering data into the EDC, but also because I said our admin will be doing data entry. More difficult is query resolution. So that's something an admin cannot do because they're not well versed on the study like the study coordinator is. The study coordinator knows how to answer queries, knows how to resolve discrepancies. Typically, the queries are triggered by data management. Sometimes they're auto-triggered. Sometimes they're manually triggered by data management. And sometimes they're queried by the CRA themselves. The ones that are queried by the CRA themselves, I wouldn't say they're more important, but they're probably not something mundane. They're probably something that needs some clarification and possibly point to something has gone wrong somewhere. So they need to be handled and resolved. These are discrepancies that need to be resolved. Handling the source data, which I discussed earlier, making sure it's complete and accurate. And the previous video we did last week, Alcoa-CCEA, attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, complete, and also you have consistent, enduring, and available. So those are good documentation practices that we've done videos on that the coordinator needs to make sure everything's documented, not just enough to collect the source, but to ensure that the source is being collected with Alcoa-CCEA principles in mind. We're not even halfway through this video. It's a lot. It's not easy to be a generalist, guys. Like, bear with me. There's more. Tracking study progress and enrollment, compiling reports for the research team and sponsors, letting the PI and sub-I and management team at the site know what's going on if there's issues, like how to troubleshoot, letting management of the sponsors know, hey, we're running out of lab kits, letting your team at the site know, hey, we need more toner for the printer. I mean, we need more snacks for the patients. Like, it's really, when I say inventory, it's inventory of everything. Patient care and safety, next section. So obviously, conducting the study-related procedures like vital signs, blood draws, which we discussed, ECGs, and other assessments. We train all our coordinators on these things. Doesn't mean they're all, like, if you're squeamish about blood, you don't have to draw blood, but you will be spinning blood samples, collecting urine samples, doing ECGs. All of our staff do blood. None of them are squeamish so far. These are, and any other study related procedures. So every study has different assessment that's unique to that study. We have spirometry test for asthma studies. We have some unique things for derm. We have other unique things for psych. These are all things you got to do. You got to set up Fitbits for certain studies. Like, there's all kinds of wearables, diaries, all kinds of stuff that goes on in patient care and safety when the patient's in the study. Monitoring patient adherence to protocol. So making sure the patient's compliant. This is a huge one. Patient compliance with the protocol, not just with the investigational product, with the protocol. Because these days, most studies have a diary or a patient-reported outcome of some sort, and patients are human beings. They don't always track what they ate or how they felt or whatever points the study is trying to collect as far as data is concerned. You know, a lot of these are like pretty burdensome on patients, and unfortunately, the coordinators are the ones that have to re-educate the patient on adhering to the protocol and documenting it. It's not enough to just say you did it. You have to go back in the source and document re-educated patient on whatever, entering diaries properly, or not showering before doing a certain thing, or collecting stool sample in a timely manner, or whatever. There's thousands of possibilities. Documentation's everything. This is why that Alcoa-CCEA video was so important. Reporting and managing adverse events and serious adverse events and side effects. And sometimes there's adverse events of special interest that require, based on the protocol, if this, then that scenario. So if labs go above 2 times upper limit of normal, you have to do this. And the protocol specifies exactly what you've got to do. There's hundreds of these possible situations popping up all the time. The coordinator's got to be aware of all that stuff, and they've got to let the right people know, hey, PI, this just happened, PI or sub-I. What should we do? The protocol says we need to do this. What do you think? The protocol says it's up to the investigator discretion. Well, what's your discretion? I need to document it. And this is what a good coordinator does, because yes, the PIs are supposed to do these things, and they will do it when you bring it up to them. But someone has to bring it up to them. And then sometimes the PIs are doing so many things, they forget the specifics of the protocol. So they'll ask, well, what does the protocol say? You don't want to get caught in that situation as a coordinator not knowing. You want to know beforehand. The protocol says we have to do this. These are your options. What do you think? And then you've got to get all that done, documented, and then communicate that back to the sponsor and the patient or whomever else you need to communicate it with. Sometimes you've got to order external assessments at outside facilities. Sometimes they want an MRI. Sometimes they want a CT scan. It's all up to the protocol. The next section, finance and budgeting. Now, majority of coordinators don't do this, but I put this in here because I put all possibilities. You guys asked for all possibilities of CRC job responsibilities. This is one. I have had certain coordinators that show affinities for finance. I've had them help out on budgets or at least tracking expenses. I mean, that probably is way more common than negotiating a budget or sending an invoice. You probably are not going to do that. But there is going to be cases where you're asked to pay a patient and keep a log of the payments. And sometimes it's not as clean as using a CLIN card or another form of vendor that the sponsor provides. Sometimes it's cash, and you may need to go to the bank and get it or talk to your site about what's your process for doing that. At our site, we have studies where it's cash, where it's the majority, thankfully, are with a CLIN card or another vendor, similar vendor, but some of them are cash, and you don't want to run out of cash when the patient's there. So you got to be proactive. Do we have enough cash for the visits tomorrow? That's a coordinator role. Also, coordinators sometimes are asked to keep track of expenses like external expenditures like MRIs, X-rays, eye exams, CT scans. Sometimes those vendors send those bills to the site at the attention of the coordinator. The coordinator's got to usually scan all those things and send it to their management so that the manager can send the invoice to the sponsor. So you may be asked to do those kind of things. You may also be asked to track patient reimbursement like lunch, things like that, small things like that, dry ice costs, out of pocket, usually petty cash related things. Sometimes you're asked to reconcile budgets, so you're going to be asked, hey, what assessments were done for this patient on this visit? How many screen fails did we have? What exactly was done? What were the assessments done for these screen failures? So you got to keep track of those kind of things, and then management will reconcile with the budget. And then basically collaborating with the finance teams for proper billing, like research-related costs versus standard of care versus expenditures. Next section, we kind of discussed it a little bit, but study startup and closeout. So setting up of new trials, including training of the staff, setting up the vendor, making sure every staff member has access to all the vendors, ensuring all the documentation is available before a study starts, like the protocol, all the certificates I mentioned, the source is actually, the template for the source is actually created, and then closeout, kind of the opposite. Final patient visits, closeout reports to the IRB, final database lock, all those kind of things with the sponsor, and preparing for possible audits, archiving of documents. It makes it easy when you're using something like an e-source like Creo. Archiving is relatively simple, but you may be asked months after the study's closed out to do certain things, and I know some sites don't like this, some coordinators don't like this, but sponsors sometimes don't have everything done at closeout, and they might come back 6 months, 12 months. I've been asked 24 months after a study's closed out, hey, can you check on this thing? We have one question. And I mean, technically it's the coordinator's role to help out with those things. Communication and collaboration, acting as the liaison between the PIs, the sponsors, the patients, the monitors, and other team members. We kind of discussed this before, but when you are the coordinator of a study that is your study, you are the facilitator. You're like the air traffic control for that study. all roads, all activity leads through you. And collaborating with multidisciplinary teams. So investigators, the people at your site that do invoicing, maybe you have people helping with the recruitment, maybe you have external vendors for the x-rays and things like that. You got to communicate with all these. It's a big part of study coordinating role, and I think a not very well understood aspect of being a coordinator is communication and proactive communication. The last thing anyone wants to hear from a coordinator who's unprepared is, hey, I need you to do this real quick. Well, you could have told me that, a week ago. And now you're telling me I only have a few minutes to get it done. So this happens a lot because coordinators are overworked. This is a long video, you could tell. It's not simple. And collaborating with people who are also equally busy as you or more sounds a lot easier than it is. So efficient communication within your team and externally with the sponsor and study team. And then there's meetings too. Most sponsors have weekly meetings or monthly meetings as far as recruitment is concerned, or just updates on the study and any challenges. And these are usually webinars or Zoom meetings that you have to attend. Next is training and supervision. So training and mentoring new CRCs or research assistants. Because as you can tell, this is a lot of work. And a lot of the smart sites hire assistants or admins to help the coordinators. So we've had an admin, and we're about to hire another one. They're at the dispense of the coordinator. Hey, this is your new research assistant. You tell her what you need done. Your job is training and mentoring her in order for her to help you, number one, help you accomplish your job more efficiently. And number two, training her to eventually possibly be a CRC. Because I've never met any research assistant working at a site that doesn't want to be a research coordinator at some point. It's higher pay, it's better perks, it's access to doing a lot more, it's one step closer to advancing your career. Most research assistants want to be coordinators at site level, so your job is to also mentor new people, just like you were probably mentored at one point when you were newer. So keep that in mind. Leadership is a big part of CRC as well. And then conducting protocol training for study staff. So tomorrow's SIV is a perfect example. The main CRC for that study, Grecia, is here. She will be here with the lead CRC. She will also be here with the PI. There will be people missing. Some sub-Is are missing. Some coordinators might be missing. It's Grecia's responsibility to train everyone else that was not there. Get it documented, get it on the log, and then oversee their progress. Because remember, those people, her colleagues, are also busy doing their own studies. So she's got to communicate, she's got to oversee, delegate, collaborate. Final point, number 10. We broke it down to 10. Business development, looking for new studies. So most coordinators don't do this, but mine do. I ask every single one of them. I alternate. Hey, help me with this study. We're applying for this one. Researching and identifying potential clinical trials that align with the site's capabilities. So we have a service, myself and Chris, that Yuma Clinical Trials is actually a part of. We're a client of for DSCS Site Services, where we do budgets and we send study leads to sites in our network. We get a weekly lead list, and I send that lead list to my CRCs. I alternate, and their job is to reach out, learn more about which ones might be a potentially good fit for us, ask the PIs if it's a good fit, if we have patience for it, and then reach out to that sponsor and CC me on it, because then I know that they've done the initial homework and that they think it's a good fit, and that likely the PI said the same thing. And now it's my turn as the site director to really go after that study. And so it's not uncommon to do stuff like that as a coordinator. Maintain relationship with sponsors and CROs. So a lot of the sponsors now, like Eli Lilly, like GlaxoSmithKline, I mean, all the big ones and even some of the smaller ones have like site engagement liaisons. And these are people that want to come out. Maybe they're medical science liaisons. They want to come out to the site. We have one next week, I believe, just to follow up. Hey, what's new? Here's some future studies we have. That's the coordinator's role, is to facilitate these kind of meetings and discussions. Attending clinical research conferences and networking events. Maybe attending investigator meetings for your study. The site will send you out not just to conferences and networking events, but investigator meetings. And so there you could collaborate with your fellow colleagues from across the industry. Hopefully you consider something like Save Our Sites, saveoursites.com. Completing feasibility questionnaires. I have my coordinators do this as well. Basically answering questions about the site once a sponsor is considering you for a study. Completing those means collaborating with other people who have the answers to the questions on those things, usually the PI or sub-I, and then reviewing, networking, finding potential studies for the site. And that's it. 10 tasks, 10 categories of tasks, literally hundreds of bullet points here on my cheat sheet. I needed it to make sure I didn't miss anything. And, I probably still miss stuff. Like, I know I mentioned social media, but some of our coordinators do TikTok for us. Others do the YouTube stuff. There's a lot going on to be a coordinator, but hopefully this was comprehensive enough and covered everything. Let me know what you think, and if I missed anything below, like, subscribe, comment, share. Thank you for watching and listening. Catch you later. Bye-bye. Hey, if you guys like that kind of content, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Stay tuned for more videos.